Hey guys, it's me Gabby from Probaholic, and today I will be reviewing BEL AMI by Guy de Maupassant, which is a French author, and this book is written in the 19th century. It's one of the classics that everyone ought to read, and today I'll be doing a spoiler-free review where I'll tell you about the main characters, the plot, and the impression this book left with me. So first of all, the cover. I know this is not the original cover, this is the movie edition. I think 2 or 3 years back we had a movie with Robert Pattinson and some very beautiful ladies. I haven't watched it. I've heard that it has very little to do with the book, and I wanted to concentrate on the book content first. Probably once I am finished with this review and with uploading it, I could probably treat myself with the movie. So as I said, this book is written in the 19th century, and our main protagonist is called George Duroy. He's one of those really interesting characters that I believe could not be summed up or stereotyped or put in a category, because he comes from a very poor family from the countryside. He served, he went to war, and then he decided he wants to go to Paris and become rich. At this point in history, many people would think, well, it's so easy to become rich. You just go to the, I don't know, capital or a large city, and fate will be in your favor and you become very rich. And actually, that's what kind of happens with him as well. As he's walking the streets of Paris, he is thinking about how much money he has and how he'll not be able to have both dinner and lunch. He'll have to choose one of two because he does not have enough money. But at the same time, he's thinking to himself, well, maybe I should go and have a beer, even though he doesn't have enough money to eat. And from that moment, I realized that his character is not the one that I typically admire and typically enjoy, because he's very self-centered and he's very ambitious, which is an admirable quality, but he believes that he ought to be the best, that he deserves everyone else's respect without actually earning it. So as he's walking the streets of Paris, he meets one of his old comrades whose name is Forestier, and George realized that his friend has become very successful. He is a journalist in a newspaper. From there, he kind of tells him that he has had no luck with finding a suitable job. He has been working very hard, but he is not able to earn enough money. And his friend is kind enough to tell him, well, maybe you can help me out. You can help me out with the newspaper and you can get some money in return, which is the opportunity that he has been looking forward to. This is the first time that fate and luck interferes in George's journey, and it opens a lot of doors for him because he is invited to dine with Forestier, with his wife, with some of their friends, and that's how he meets people from the upper classes. As a whole, this book follows our main protagonist, George Duroy, who actually changes his name a few times. First, he's George Duroy, where Duroy is one word, then he wants to sound more sophisticated and separates in two words, where it's George Duroy, and then there is George Duroy von Kent or something like that, and then some people call him BEL AMI, and yeah, it's a really interesting how as he is developing and as he is becoming a more important part in the higher society, he's changing his name very rapidly in order to kind of keep up with the changes that are appearing in his insights and in his character. If I have to summarize this book with one sentence, it's about a man who realizes that women are weak and learns how to manipulate them. I give this book 3 out of 5 stars because I believe it's a very well written book. It has characters that are complex and are interesting to read about, but at the same time I was kind of offended because the women in the story were so gullible. They were so ready to give themselves up and to give everything away for the attention of a man, and they had no self-respect. And I believe that those qualities might have existed in women, but as a reader, as a woman who is reading this, I felt like this example is not something that I want to set for other people or for myself. So that is something I believe I kind of struggled with, but at the same time, I can't really judge the book because it's written like a century and a half ago, where women did have different standards. Even though all of that happened, there were still some moments where women showed their worth. For example, Forstier's wife is a very brilliant and very smart woman who is able to get across her words and her meaning and her messages, and she is very praised in her circle. So that is an example of a woman that is doing well and is a good example for women. As a whole, I believe that this book was interesting for me to see it from like a male point of view, how women are so easy to manipulate, because I could never say that right now. And I believe that the writing style and the setting and the historical references created this very interesting setting that I enjoyed. I definitely recommend reading it because it's a very unique experience. It's about a man who will do everything, who is willing to do everything in order to get his way and to reach his goals, even if that harms the people around him. I find that the title BEL AMI is quite ironic because BEL AMI means a good friend, and he's the opposite of that. BEL AMI is selfish and is very arrogant. And so yeah, in conclusion, I enjoyed the characters as a observation but not as role models, because they were all very flawed and they all had something they really needed to work on, our main protagonist especially. But it's still interesting to see books where we have very flawed characters in order to be able to reflect on our lives and the people around us. Also, I found the writing style enjoyable. The character development was also really nice, and as I said, the change of names and the changing character also reflected on the character development. I was pleasantly surprised. I thought that this book will be harder to read and to comprehend, but it's very fast paced. I literally read it in one day, in 2 sittings or something like that, and I do recommend it. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, and yeah, I enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed reading about BEL AMI, who is actually not a good friend.